There it is.
Okay, I'm so
Cheers.
thank you, Joel Baker, for joining me today this morning for coffee.
Thanks for having me. Absolutely.
You're in San Fran.
I'm in San Francisco right now. I live right on the coast on Pacifica. It's like 15 minutes out from the city. It's beautiful. Here, I'll show you real quick. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Here, check it out. This is where I live. It's like backs up against a national kind of like a wildlife park. Right?
Oh, come on. What? You are
See that? You see the mountains? The mountains right there?
Really beautiful. So do you see the sunset or
I
rise?
do. I do. It's nice. I see the sunset.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Lucky.
Yeah.
I would love to show you Calgary. Ready, guys?
Yeah, let me see it.
You want to see it? Oh gosh.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God! Look at that snow.
It's
Holy
just
wow.
snow.
Wow, amazing. Yeah.
That was like a little behind the scenes.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you so much for reaching out to me on LinkedIn. The power of social media.
Totally.
You kind of told me briefly about your story, but I really love it. Was just so wild. And I think for me, what you told me of your story, it just shows how there is a purpose in life and everything does come together. And, you know, sometimes we don't get that glimpse into the bigger picture, but you kind of got a glimpse into a validation for what you do and the journey that you've taken as a circus performer and director and entertainer. And
absolutely. Yeah, I would say in this career that I've had as a circus artist, I'd say it happens quite often. It happens to me a lot. I was doing my first circus in San Francisco. I was the last pickle clown in the new pickle circus in San Francisco.
Wait, what's a pickle clown?
So the new pickle circus, or the pickle family circus,
okay.
it was San Francisco's original circus, like founded, I would say, in the early 70s, late 60s. Its members went on to found a really amazing company in Montreal that I went to go work for later on. It was when I graduated from circus school. And right out of circus school, my graduation, I was cast in the pickle circus.
How old were you when you discovered your love for the circus?
I think I was like 23.
Okay.
23, because I just
late.
arrived.
Isn't that kind of late to discover your love for the circus?
It's totally late. It's totally late. But I did a bunch of stuff before that. Before I was a clown and an acrobat, I was a barber. I was a hairdresser.
That's why you have good hair.
And my father was a hairdresser, and I went into barbering, and I cut hair for a long time. And then I had my mother pass away, and then I decided to kind of leave everything behind and go to work on a fishing boat in Alaska.
Can I ask a question? So
Yeah.
I find it interesting because when we do lose someone who's very close to us, like
Right.
a parent, I do feel like there is that natural shift that like nothing else matters.
Oh.
I'm going to take a full pause.
Absolutely. I think that, like, I'm a believer that when your parents pass away, that's when you truly become who you are as a person.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right. So I think that, like, you know, when your parents leave, it's just you to deal with you and to deal with life, right? I think parents keep us, you know, in this interesting stable place, you know, through our lives, and then when they're gone, it's you and what they've kind of instilled in you, right? So it's just a continuation of them, but at the same time you become who you are, right? So she passed away, and then my best friend and I decided, over a few pictures of margaritas afterwards, to work on fishing boats in Alaska. So we went on this big adventure on our motorcycles. We were on the road for 4 months, and it was like a time that I used to grieve and to kind of get over my mother's death and move on from one place to another. And when we got to San Francisco, I got in this horrible motorcycle wreck. This woman hit me with her car. I went up into the air 15 feet, and I just came down on the highway, and I rolled out on the highway, and I shattered my collarbone into 6 pieces and just ended up in the hospital. And I stayed in San Francisco.
The universe is like, no.
Exactly. And then I found my way to the circus school in San Francisco when I was living there. I met the coach, Master Lu Yi was his name, and he just started coaching me. And in China, they in acrobatics, they kind of look at your body type, like what kind of, you know, what kind of body do you have for what kind of discipline in circus could you do, right? So he saw that I have chicken legs, these really skinny legs, right? And a kind of a broad upper body, strong arms. And so he chose me to study hand balancing.
What's the timeline between the shattering, healing, and then joining to be doing hand balancing?
It healed. I healed pretty fast, so it healed up after a few months. I was pretty good to go. I think the training kind of helped me heal too and get strong, you know, my muscles around the actual injury and stuff like that. But it starts slow. The training starts slow. It starts with a lot of flexibility training and strength training. So
you didn't have a background in any dance or gymnastics or anything prior?
No. It's really hard training, and it's nonstop, right? And it's a lot of pushing and stretching, and it's no joke, right? It's pretty hardcore.
When you got thrown into this, did you feel like this is kind of where you wanted to be?
That was my first green light moment, was, you know, finding the circus school and finding out that I was more intelligent with my body than anything else. Kind of felt perfect, like a perfect match. And then on my 4th year, I was approached by a teacher named Jeff Raz. He was working at the circus school, and he had a program called the Clown Conservatory. And he asked me to audition, and I did. He said, "We want you in this program." But I told him, I said, "I can't, because I've got this medical bill from this motorcycle wreck. I couldn't like afford it." So he offered me a scholarship because he thought it was really funny. And he was the second person at the school who took me under his wing and became a really amazing mentor.
But when your friends called you and they're like, "Hey, what are you up to?" and you're like, "Oh, I'm now in the circus," they're like, "What was that like?"
The fastest way to lose friends, I just disappeared for a long time because it took a lot of discipline. You have to quit a lot of stuff. You have to quit going out all night, and you have to quit drinking, and you have to quit smoking, and you got to, like, you know, you don't have to, but it really helps, right?
So what did your dad say when he heard you were in the circus?
Yeah, he said, "Don't be a clown, don't do it, don't be a circus artist, you'll never make enough money to live."
It's also about the money with parents, isn't it?
It is about the money, but artistically, I think, is about, you know, you have one aspect that's about the money, right? Like I have 3 things that I look at in my career when I decide to make a certain direction, and I think that keeps me in the going in the right direction. I look at 3 things. Is the money good? Is it artistically interesting? And are the people I'm working with cool to work with? Are they nice? Are they kind people? And if it's all 3 of those things is a yes, then I do it. If only 2 of those things are a yes, it's kind of takes me a while to decide. Like, but it could be any 2 of those 3 things, right?
So how is the money in circus?
Depends on who you work for. You know, of course, everybody knows Cirque du Soleil is a big company, and they can afford to pay more than a lot of other people. And you have, like, you know, your regular benefits. You have like medical and dental and you know, insurance, and, you know, and now they're offering like a 401k, you know, like to artists. And like, even though they're bankrupt, right, and they're not coming back, they will come back to shows, but they'll always come back, and they're a strong company. So
basically they're bankrupt, but they'll be back.
yeah, they're coming back for sure. I mean, Vegas can't survive without Cirque du Soleil, I think, for sure.
Like, I didn't even know circus existed until I saw Cirque. Like, it was for
Right.
that generation. It was that generational.
And that's how it is for most American people, right? And like and Canadian people. It's but in Europe, it's a totally different scene, right? It's like every and worldwide, like every country has their own circus scene.
So
and history too.
Right.
Right. Like, speaking fashion wise, like, because I know you're connected to that world, it's Like, for instance, in France, like in the 1800s, only the most famous fashion designers would design the clowns' costumes in the circus. Only the most prestigious clothes designers would make the costume for the white clown. Like, the white clown is like a type of clown, right? That exists in circus. There's a white clown and a red clown.
Who does everyone want to be?
Usually the white clown is the one who leads the scene, right? The smarter one. Mm-hmm. And the red clown is the one who usually wore the nose and wore really big baggy clothes, and he was the one who was pretty stupid, like the funny one, the one that got all the laughs, right?
So what are the biggest Cirque shows that you should look out for? Because I feel like I think circus, I think Cirque du Soleil. What's like on the horizon?
I think there's a lot to look forward to coming, because when things come back, it's going to be pretty intense, I think, especially, and they're going to need clowns, that's for sure.
Yeah, we need to laugh
after this, but it's hard to tell what's going to make it through the pandemic.
So as a director, what are you working on? Can you share?
I have a website, joelbakerdirector.com, and through that I direct shows, but currently it's mainly individual work with artists and helping them develop ideas for their acts and for their numbers. It's kind of the perfect time to go into a creative cocoon. So when it's time for this to end, everyone's going to come out with these great ideas.
Okay, when I think clown, and I love, this is like my whole world is, I'm going to do so much research now. Okay, for every show, do you create a different character for your clown, or are you always a clown in that situation and it's the consistency?
When I'm a clown, it's like me when I was like 10 years old.
Okay.
The
same in every different show that you do, or does it just...
Well, yeah, because that's like, every clown is unique in the way that they have their own style. It's different from acting. As a clown, you are who you are. If you're boring in real life, you're going to be boring as a clown. I would say it's like 80% Joel Baker, and the rest is like who I create, what I've decided to imagine.
So do you want to talk about how Germany became such a big green light again in your life?
So I get hired to do this show LOFT, and I had right before I got hired, my dad had passed away, and he left me a box with a few things, like an old watch and a certificate. It was a marriage certificate. It was to a woman named Frieda Wubeking, a German woman. And I decided that, when I went to Germany, to Berlin to do this contract with LOFT, that I was going to try to find her. And because it was a marriage certificate, right?
Your mom knew that your dad was pretty...
Yeah, no one knew. No one knew. No one in my family knew about it. So he had died, and I felt like I really wanted to find this woman and let her know that he had passed away, and just meet her, and because I know my dad wanted me to, or he wouldn't have left me the certificate, right? So I did. The stage manager of the show, LOFT, was really helpful, and he interpreted a lot of the stuff on the marriage certificate, because a military marriage certificate is really specific, like all the names of her relatives, all their birth dates, like where they worked, like social security numbers, like all their addresses, everything, right? So
what are the odds that before you're going to Germany for this show, that your dad passes away and you end up with this box and that the marriage certificate says Germany? Like, what?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, really weird. The stage manager helped me track her down, and he did, and but he noticed a few things on the certificate that I hadn't noticed, and he said that under her occupation, it said artisan. When I talked to her, I found out that she was a circus artist.
And then when you told her that that's what you, or who said they did it first? Did you say you were in town because you're in a circus thing, and then she's like, or did you? How did?
No, I told her first. I told her I was in Berlin to do a show,
Uh-huh.
a circus show, and then she told me she was from a circus family, and she told me that her father was a clown, and that all her sister, she lived with her sister, and her sister was an acrobat, and they came from a family of acrobats, right?
Oh my God, your dad must have been dying to kind of tell you. I feel maybe, but no, I don't. That's wild. Like,
Yeah,
not everyone's an acrobat or in the circus.
but and
Had a
she,
connection like that.
yeah, and she was a tight wire walker mainly, and so I had a week off for Christmas, and we spent a week together, just hanging out and like getting to know each other. And when I was going through all this stuff with her, I looked up at the wall, and there was this portrait up on the wall of someone that looked just like me. And I said, "Who is that?" She said, "That's my son, and that's the son that I had with your dad." And at the time, it was funny because I was like, um, right, I was in my 20s, and right before, um, Sam, I'm sorry, Sam was his name. Sam was the half brother's name. Right before he had reached the age of 18 to get his driver's license and come to the States and meet my dad. That's what he really wanted to do. He he died, so I never got to meet him. So
What's
he
what?
was he went they went from like a circus tradition to kind of like gypsies. Like they became kind of like a gypsy family where, she worked at a Christmas market, and then, he worked like fixing up old cars. Like that's kind of what he did. And I guess he was at a bar one night, and this drunk guy said, "I've got a Cadillac at my place. Come check it out." And he went with the guy to check out the Cadillac, and he wanted to buy it. And he's like, "I'll bring you back to the bar," but he was really drunk, right? So he decided to call a cab, Sam. So he called a cab, and he was waiting for the cab to bring him back to the bar. And the car came around this turn where he was waiting and hit him and killed him. So he was hit by this cab, and that's when he died.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he was just checking out some car, and was, he didn't want to get in the car again with this drunk guy, to bring him back. So he's waiting for a cab.
Oh my
Right?
gosh. And okay, so did she know that you existed in America?
No, no, she didn't know. But what's funny is that I look just like her dead son, right? So, and
At
it
the
was
same,
Christmas time.
right? Talking about freezing time.
Yeah, yeah, it was Christmas time, and like, it was and there was a big family dinner planned, right, for Christmas. And so she took me with her to this big family dinner. And I was surrounded by like tons of circus people and German circus artists, like all retired circus artists and circus people. And those big long tables that the Germans, they'll, and when they have a celebration or they have a festival or whatever, they have the big long tables, and they, so I'm sitting at these long tables with all these clowns and acrobats and people that, and I look, and everyone's like, "Sam, Sam, Sam," because I look just like this guy. Everyone's talking about Sam, and because I look like him,
Someone
and
like touching your face to see if you were real.
yeah, pretty much, because I look like Sam at the age he died, right? And and so I looked like him, just kind of coming back.
How? What was the age difference between you two? Like how many years after
He,
we?
he was he was much older than me, right? Because he was
10
born.
years maybe? Not even.
I think like now he would be in his like late 50s or something,
Right. Oh, so quite
right?
a big
Or like early 60s or something like that,
gap.
right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah,
knew about your dad, so he did want to come and visit your dad. That was kind of his dream.
yeah, totally. He
And did
did.
your dad know when he passed away, or?
I don't know. Like I like I think that he lost touch, and like, you know, I think as we got older and he got older, he just lost touch with Frida and Sam. But I found him.
That was another like, you're definitely in the right
Yeah.
like calling of what you're doing. Okay, so what is some advice you'd give to any young performer that wants to get into the industry?
I would say uh, take acrobatic classes, right? And take theater classes. I would say theater classes really help. Like a lot of acrobats come into circus without knowing a lot of theater skills, right? And I would say theater skills are so important, and they just make you more desirable as a performer, as a circus artist.
Is there a book I need to read? What's your favorite book? Like, what's a must-read book, or that's inspired you?
Oh, okay, here we go. Right
Yeah,
here.
I'm ready.
There it is. Circus Days and Nights. Poems by Robert Lax. Very special book about a poet who followed the circus for a long time. And this is actually, it's not written anywhere and it's not proven, but I think these are the poems. This is the poet who inspired the name for Cirque du Soleil, because he has a set of poems called Circus of the Sun, which is what Cirque du Soleil means.
Was this a circus performer who wrote the book, or just someone that followed the circus and fell in love with it?
He did perform as a clown sometimes, like in shows that with the circus that he followed and decided to write poetry about. But he really wasn't much of a performer. He was just a poet.
It's beautiful. Isn't it beautiful when everyone finds their little slot in life and how we all connect and enhance each other through, you know, you're a performer or you're the viewer, and there's like this beautiful everything if you find your pocket. Everyone needs to find their pocket of passion. I'm gonna write a book called,
Yeah.
oh, that doesn't sound right, Pocket of Passion. Like, rated R. But where do you see yourself 10 years from now? Or what do you see yourself doing 10 years from now?
I see myself as a director, absolutely, like creating shows for Cirque du Soleil, for other circus companies in Europe and Germany. I see myself as a you know, yeah, as a director of shows, definitely.
So where is your happy place?
On stage. You know, I love Hugh Jackman. I think he's amazing. I think he's a great actor, performer. But he said that, like, you know, his happy place is just, it's on stage, you know what I mean? And that because like he doesn't party, you know, he doesn't party like before a show or after a show or anything like that, because for him the party's on stage.
It is a very drastic high and low when you're on stage and then it kind of stops. What's a good balance point? Like what advice would you give to someone while they're in that intermediate stage of not performing?
Well, I would say there's like I said before, there's three ways that you decide on a contract. There's three ways that you live as an artist. Always be working on a new project or a new idea. You know, never be lazy, meaning like always be training and working on, like, you know, your body or conditioning or like, you know, acrobatically. And save your money, you know, because you don't know when you'll come into a period of time like this, you know, like the pandemic, where you need your money and you need to, like, you know, you'll also need those other two things. We call it in circus, we call it the hole. Like the hole is like where you go when shows stop, right? Like, you know, like for instance, like I had this show for 7 years. I did 2 shows a night for 7 years with Cirque du Soleil, right, for the show Love. And when it was done, there was a hole. Like, what am I doing with this time? Like the time where I'm on stage and my body, my brain is so used to performing every night, you know. So it's called the hole. It's like a period of time where you're not on stage and you're you know, you don't know what to do at the time. You don't you know, and your brain kind of messes with you, because it's like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I doing? And sometimes it can turn into depression. It can turn into, like, you know, a sadness. But, you know, because there's nothing sadder than a clown without a job. I think it's funny because I've always stayed focused on circus.
Yeah.
Even without circus, I've stayed focused on circus, right? And I think that's something that, it's hard to do. It's hard to have that kind of faith, you know what I mean, when things fall apart. But like, you know, a lot of people don't, right? A lot of people become real estate agents. A lot of people just turn to these other things that, you know, take them in a completely different direction. And you know, because it's easy, you know, you know, to make, you know, to find another way to make money and you know, to survive. And you do what you got to do. There's nothing wrong with that. But you know, sometimes you got to suffer for your art.
Hmm. I think it's just so fascinating how you started so late in life. Because I do feel a lot of performers, when they start too early, they peak and they're kind of done and they're ready for the next chapter at 24. But it's so beautiful that you kind of lived your life as a barber, found your beautiful passion and calling at 23, and now you're in this beautiful pocket where you're transforming into now a director, and it feels like it has more longevity in a.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I think so too. And I think maybe it's the same reason why people decide to get married older and older, you know, nowadays, because people want to know who they are first. You know, they want to live a life, and they want to, you know, they want to explore the world, and before they decide, okay, this is my next chapter of my life. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's in circus is like a marriage, you know. It's emotionally satisfying. It's like it's like satisfying on all these different, physically satisfying. It's satisfying on so many different levels, right? um and it's a commitment, and it's something that you like wake up to every day and you think about, you know. And it's great like that.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I was writing up a storm. I started with an empty notebook, and now my notebook is like
Wow,
with
look at that.
arrows and like I have like my info. I've learned so much.
Bookshop will be happening next, and there's more about that
On your,
on my clown website,
which is,
joelbakerclown.com.
and the other one was just joelbaker.com.
The other one was joelbakerdirector.com, and that's for anyone that's interested in working with me on new ideas for theater or new ideas for shows.
I can't wait to see you on stage.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. It was great.
Lots of love. Bye.
Lots of love.